Something's not right. It was already past midnight when I left the office. The city was nearly silent, the streets empty except for the occasional car passing by. I walked the familiar route home, the glow of streetlights casting long shadows on the pavement. At first, it was just small things. A flickering light that seemed to pulse in an irregular rhythm. A cat that froze mid-stride, staring at me for far too long before vanishing into an alley. The air felt heavy, like the pressure before a storm, but the sky was clear. I dismissed it all as exhaustion. Long hours at work had blurred my days together, making everything feel off. But then I noticed something else. My footsteps weren't echoing. They always did on this particular street, bouncing off the brick walls. But now, silence. I stopped and looked around. The buildings looked the same. The road stretched ahead just as always, but something was different. I couldn't put my finger on it, but the sensation crawled under my skin. I kept walking, a little faster now. A few blocks later, I saw a man standing under a street lamp. He was tall, dressed in a dark coat, his face shadowed. As I passed him, he spoke without looking at me. "You're late tonight." I stopped mid-step. "Sorry?" He turned his head slightly, not enough for me to see his face clearly. "You usually come this way at 11:45. Tonight, it's 12:13. Cold crept up my spine. I didn't know this man. I'd never seen him before. "Do I know you?" He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "You don't remember?" Something about the way he said it made my stomach twist. I took a step back. "Look, I don't know what you're talking about. Have a good night." I walked away quickly, but after a few steps, I glanced back. The man was gone. The street lamp he had been standing under flickered and went out. I was almost running now. My apartment was only a few blocks away. I just needed to get inside, lock the door, and sleep this off. But as I turned the corner, my breath caught in my throat. I was back where I started. The office building loomed ahead, its dark windows staring at me like empty eyes. That wasn't possible. I had walked in a straight line. I turned and ran the other way, heart pounding. The city seemed darker now, the streetlights dimmer. I reached the next intersection, took a deep breath, and turned the corner. The office building stood in front of me again. Panic surged through me. I pulled out my phone, but there was no signal, no Wi-Fi. The clock still read 12:13. A hand rested lightly on my shoulder. I spun around. It was the man from before, standing too close. His face was still obscured, as if the shadows bent unnaturally around him. "You weren't supposed to notice," he said softly. I stumbled backward. "Notice what? What's happening?" He sighed, almost regretful. "It's easier when they don't realize." The streetlights flickered again. The buildings seemed to shift, stretching and twisting at the edges of my vision. "Please," I whispered. The man reached into his coat pocket. "You were never supposed to leave." Darkness swallowed everything. Silence.